It gets to a point, and we have reached that point. I'm gonna need Brooklyn, Nicola, somebody, anybody at this point to drop the footage of that first dance, because it's very much giving the way Brooklyn is traumatically describing this. It's very much giving Victoria got up on that stage and did this.
A little bit. All I really need is a little bit. Not a lot, baby girl, just a little bit. We can head to the crib in a little bit. I can show you how I live in a little bit. I wanna unbutton your pants just a little bit. Take them off, pull them down.
Aloha, beautiful humans. Welcome to my channel if you are new here. Welcome back if we've been locked in. My name is Sasha, and today we're talking family estrangement, Brooklyn Beckham's statement against his parents, finally coming out and confirming what has long been suspected as an estrangement from his family, and my thoughts on the estrangement as someone who has gone through a cooling off period with their parents and has come back to have what I would like to call, or what I feel is a pretty good relationship with my parents, and how I got to that point. Now, if you're a 90s baby like me, born in the 80s, raised in the 90s, you came up on the era of girl power that was ushered in by the UK's finest Spice Girls. Now, my favorite Spice Girl, personally, I was a Ginger Spice girl myself, but everybody always tried to make me be Scary Spice for obvious reasons. And it's not that I didn't like Scary Spice. I just felt more aligned with Ginger Spice, like her vim, her energy, her just steez. I just loved it. I really strongly gravitated towards Ginger Spice. And my second favorites were Mel C and Mel V, Scary Spice and Sporty Spice. And then there was Posh Spice and Baby Spice. I didn't really gravitate towards Baby Spice and Posh Spice, but I did always love Victoria's fashion. She was just always giving cool girl energy, like very low key, very mysterious, very demure. And I love that. I love that energy. Like in my next life, I'm coming back either as a very mediocre and average white man, or I'm coming back as Posh Spice, because, and maybe not Posh Spice particularly, but I want to come back as that girl who is just that classy girl who's quiet, who's very demure, who's very mysterious. Like I really love the energy, mysterious, like type A, low-key kind of women give off. So that's what I would say I want to come back in my next life. Anyways, we all know that she married David Beckham. They have 4 beautiful children, and Brooklyn Beckham is their oldest child. Now, I know nothing about soccer, so I'm not going to sit here and try to give the rundown of David Beckham's accomplishments on the pitch, but if you know, you know. He is UK royalty as far as soccer goes, and he's had a long-standing lucrative career. Him and his wife have been on several reality TV shows. Victoria has went on to become a fashion designer and had her own brand for a time. They have done very well for themselves and have become media darlings. So they get really good publicity. And honestly, I really don't hear anything bad in the news about the Beckhams. Now, I don't know a lot about Brooklyn, but from the little I do know about him, it seems that he's gone the route of what a lot of billionaire and millionaire kids do, or kids who have parents who are largely in the public eye. They try to make a name for themselves outside of, some of them do, not all of them, because remember when Kendall Jenner, everything I know about those people, the Jenners, by the way, is against my will, or the Card Jenners is against my will and consent. But every time they say something ridiculous, it makes their news rounds, therefore I hear about it. And I remember, what's her face, the model one? Kendall. I do not be knowing these people. But anyways, I remember Kendall saying that her family name didn't get her in the door to becoming a model. And then when people heard her say this, they took it and ran with it on social media, because they inserted a clip from, I guess, the reality show from back in the day when the mom was going around making calls to different modeling agencies to try to get her appointments or interviews or castings, etc. And then she said that she wouldn't use her last name in the bookings, that she would only use her first name or go by a different alias, if I'm remembering it correctly. And it's like, girl, you have been on TV because of your sisters and your family since you were like, what, maybe 9 or 11 years old. I don't know how old they were when that show got started. But anyways, to think that people wouldn't know your face, especially different modeling agencies, because you dropped off your last name is crazy. But anyways, you have some billionaire, millionaire kids with access. Some of them will go the nepotism route. Brooklyn did try to make a name for himself outside of nepotism. I will say that, however, when that wasn't working out for him, he's tried several different careers. Those weren't working out for him. So he finally used nepotism, trying to use his parents' name, and it still didn't work out for him. So I don't know what he's doing nowadays, but he don't got to have a job. Not only is he the son of millionaires, I don't think the Beckhams are billionaires, but they're doing very well for themselves, okay? They're doing very well for themselves. So not only does he not have to have a job because his parents are millionaires, as a result of the estrangement, they may have cut him off, but it doesn't matter because he's married to the daughter of billionaires. So enter Nicola. Nicola Peltz is a 31-year-old American actress. Now, mind you, I didn't bring this up, but Brooklyn is 5 years younger than her. He's 26. And I know people are like, oh, you're grown, it doesn't matter. And I do think that past a certain age gaps don't matter, especially their age gap. They're 5 years older or younger than one another. They're also the child, again, of very successful people. Her parents are billionaires, Claudia and Nelson Peltz. As a result, she probably grew up a lot faster and under the same level of a microscope, under the same level of scrutiny. Maybe, I don't think her parents were in the public eye the way the Beckhams were and still are, but at a certain age, like living in a certain class, I imagine you are experiencing certain things and it's causing you to grow up very fast. In their case, I will say that the age gap is negligible. However, in ordinary circumstances, I would say that the age gap is negligible, especially because they grew up in the same general class, you know, upper middle class, wealthy, child of parents who are well-to-do in the public eye under a certain level of scrutiny. So I think all children who experience life like that, they probably have more in common than not, regardless of their age. However, Brooklyn's prefrontal cortex just developed. He's literally 26 years old. And I do think that his age does impact some of the things he unleashed in his statement. So let's get into his statement. I'm not going to read all of it, but I will talk about some of the things that were interesting to me. And David Beckham finally responded along with one of his other siblings. And his siblings didn't directly respond, but they respond how kids do nowadays, which is on social media, liking shady posts. Like, I thought it wasn't even shady. It was funny because I will say the videos that are coming out right now parodying how Victoria Beckham must have been up there dancing and twerking on that stage have been absolutely hilarious to me. Like, the internet wastes no time. And I've seen so many videos. I've shared a few of them on my own personal TikTok. So they have been funny to me. So their children are obviously on social media. So they're seeing these things, they're liking it. So even though they're not coming out and directly responding or saying anything, you can kind of view it to nowadays, the way people do on social media, a like is very telling, a follow is telling, an unfollow is telling. So let's get into Brooklyn's bombshell statement, because who asked for this? Like, nobody asked for this. Literally nobody at all. We're minding our business, fighting for our lives here in America, and we get some good tea from the UK. So anyways, like I said, I'm not going to read all of his entire statement. I will put a screen grab on screen about parts of his statement that I do want to address, but I'm not going to sit here and read all of them to you. You're an adult, you can read, and you have the internet. If you're watching this video, you got the internet, so go look it up. So anyways, here's the first part of the statement that was eyebrow raising to me. I have been silent for years and made every effort to keep these matters private. Unfortunately, my parents and their team have continued to go to the press, leaving me with no choice but to speak for myself and tell the truth about only some of the lies that have been printed. I do not want to reconcile with my family. I'm not being controlled. I'm standing up for myself for the first time in my life. For my entire life, my parents have controlled narratives in the press about our family. The performative social media posts, family events, and inauthentic relationships have been a fixture of the life I was born into. Recently, I have seen with my own eyes the lengths that they'll go through to place countless lies in the media, mostly at the expense of innocent people to preserve their own facade. But I believe the truth always comes out. So very clearly, the countless lies they're talking about, or he's referencing, are the lies about his wife, Nicola. She has not gotten very positive press. I will say that. Everything I've heard about that girl is mostly negative. And I think it's because I have not really watched any of the movies she was in. I honestly don't know her outside of the Beckhams being married to Brooklyn. So I have no idea about this girl. Now, is it because of the Beckhams planting these lies in the media about her? I don't know. I'm not in their pocketbook. I'm not in their wallet. I don't know what is going on. However, I will say that we are in very contentious and trying times right now. Her family are MAGA. So I'm thinking that, is she getting bad press, or is she on the receiving end of rightful vitriol and people wanting to keep their distance from a certain political ideology. We're no longer in a place of politics where it's just Democrats and Republicans and you're disagreeing based off of fiscal. Some people will say they're fiscally conservative, but they're socially democratic or they're socially left-leaning. That's not where we are as a society anymore. A lot of people left that behind in 2008 when Barack Obama became president. So now you're either a Democrat or you're some type of left-leaning person with empathy and community care and you want rights for all people, or you're just right-wing MAGA. That's just kind of where we are. And with her family being MAGA, I do not think the Beckhams, who are now they're removed entirely from our American political system. They don't have to deal with this in the UK, although they have their own right-wing horrible conservative movements going on over there. But for the most part, the Beckhams have very positive press. They're very widely applauded. They're not really in drama. They're not really in tea. They're not really in mess. And I can definitely see how Nicola, who does not have good press, aside from her family being MAGA, she's also been in relationships with other people where the same thing has happened, this level of family estrangement. When she was dating Bella and Gigi Hadid's younger brother, Anwar, he went through the same kind of estrangement with his family behind her. So it's like, she just may be bringing an energy to the family and a dynamic that they don't appreciate. And who else would be controlling their image in the press? Now, the UK press is insane. It's like, if you think American media is bad, you need to go over there. Their press is insane. However, all of his life, they would be controlling the narrative because they are his parents. Like, Brooklyn, you're 26. You just got here. And I think like he has a level of disdain and vitriol for his parents before all of this happened, before the wedding. Because like I said, he tried different things on his own, didn't want to use the family name. He wasn't successful in those endeavors. So he fell back on using the family name and he still wasn't successful in those endeavors. And I think what happens with a lot of Nepo babies, in my personal opinion, either they're naturally talented, something from their parents was passed down to them and they go on and have the same natural talents and can make a name outside for themselves. Like, for example, John David Washington, Denzel Washington's son. I didn't even know he was Denzel Washington's son until I don't even know what project it was, but I always thought he was a really great actor. So he's made a name for himself. But then you have Nepo babies who rely on their parents regardless of whether they are successful or not. Like, I think Bella Hadid is a very successful model. Would she have gotten into the industry without her mom? Maybe, maybe not, but I think she's very successful. So anyways, I think like Brooklyn has some level of disdain towards his parents that was present before Nicola even got into the picture. So I don't want to blame her entirely, but I will say that she comes with her own energy that probably makes it so his parents may not be falling all over her. And so saying his parents have controlled their family image, duh, I don't think that's a bad thing. I think that is just reality. You're 26 years old. You've just got here. You haven't really made a name for yourself in anything you have endeavored to do. So this is not shade. This is not shade towards him at all. He's only 26 years old. He has a lot of life to figure it out. You see people in their 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s who are just now figuring it out. So me saying that is not any shade by any means. He has time to figure it out, but his parents are the star. They are the ones who have built up their careers and created an image, a brand for themselves, and it is natural that they would want to protect that brand. And if there's any negative scrutiny coming out in the press, you better believe that they're going to counter it or put out a statement about it. Why wouldn't they? I think the expectation that they all of a sudden shut up and not be careful and particular about their image, I think it's very weird to me. I think, and it goes to show, again, his age. I keep on bringing up his age because he is literally 26 years old. His prefrontal cortex has just developed. He says he's dealing with a lot of anxiety, a lot of depression, a lot of different feelings. I don't know if he's gotten counseling for that or has gone to therapy, but a lot of those feelings on top of growing up in a bubble, it makes it so that I imagine he grew up fast and exposed to a lot, but just because you grew up fast doesn't mean you're mature. And in this statement, I saw a lot of immaturity. I saw what some of the things and some of the feelings that I felt at 26 years old, at 25 years old, at 24 years old, when I was going through my own issues with my own parents and did not have the clarity of not only time and distance, but also maturity. I think it's crazy to come out with a statement like this and say, I do not want to reconcile with my family, so you're dropping a bomb. And maybe this statement was for him to say, the final straw, because I imagine because of the brand, because of their family image, family is a big part of the brand and image of the Beckhams. So I don't imagine that they would want any of this out in the press. So maybe that they were trying to reconcile with him on the back end, and him putting out this statement was the final straw to say, no, stop reaching out, stop trying to talk to me. I don't want to reconcile with you. I'm done. So maybe that was his way of getting it clear to his parents by bombing their entire image that he doesn't want to reconcile. And if that's the case, that's fine. But I also think that is very immature. I think it's very vindictive. I think it's very spiteful when he knows his parents have built up a certain brand and have only given him that we have seen as the public. We don't know what goes on in anybody's household, okay? So let's make that very clear. But I do think it's very spiteful of him to come out with a statement like that, knowing his family is pretty private about family matters and has built up a certain brand, to then say, I don't want to reconcile with my family. You couldn't have just blocked them and kept it moving? Like, again, just very immature, very attention-getting, very attention-seeking, in my personal opinion. And I think this does say a lot about Nicola, because it, to me, is really sad when somebody can come into a family and destroy that family. Snowman and I have been married for, it'll be 10 years this year. And if he ever became, and this has happened with friends, not with family, but if there is ever a time in which he has become, had a point of friction with a friend or a family member, somebody he really cares about, I've always encouraged him to reach out and give it time and give them patience, but at the very least, put the olive branch out there and seek some type of reconciliation, seek some type of coming to an understanding, make amends where you need to. It is crazy to me for a wife or for a husband to come into a family unit. Now, again, we don't know what goes on in the Beckhams household, but assuming the dynamic was healthy and it was a healthy relationship, a healthy parent-child relationship, and you were going through anxiety, all of these things were happening, to blanketly sit there and watch your partner or your person destroy their entire relationship with their family, with their siblings, everyone they love, everyone who has gotten them to the point of life that they are in now, and everything flips upside down because you're in the picture. I think that's crazy. We are living in an era of estrangement, people going no contact. No contact is the last absolute route you want to go. The goal is to always preserve the relationship. This is why we have boundaries. And again, here comes that therapy speak. A lot of people are using therapy speak and not understanding what is behind it, what it actually means to implement it in your life in a safe and healthy way. Boundaries are not rules for you to lord over other people and determine their behavior and how they move through life. Boundaries are personal limits, standards of behavior for what you will tolerate in your own life. So if you have a boundary and boundaries can be flexible depending on who the person is, because the goal of a boundary is to maintain a relationship with someone. You just need these things to happen in order for you to maintain those relationships, to keep yourself safe. It is not to govern that other person's behavior. If they step on your boundaries and if they disrespect your boundaries, absolutely call it out, see if you can come to some type of reconciliation. And if you can't, it's time to create some distance. It's time to love them from a distance. So I completely respect that. But nowadays, people are automatically talking about my boundaries this, my boundaries that, trying to use those rules, use their boundaries as rules to govern other people's behavior and how they should move through the world. And boundaries are for you. They're not for other people. But other people use them now. They have weaponized what it is to have boundaries. And a lot of people are also weaponizing going no contact with their family members over small things. That could just be a misunderstanding. That could just be a conversation. And going no contact it's a very extreme thing. I've been there before. It is really hurtful, but it is what you do after trying everything and nothing works. That's when you get to that point. Now, everybody's going to have their own boundaries and their own litmus test and their own standard for when they go no contact. But I think it is crazy to, at the first offense, and I'm not saying this is what Brooklyn is doing. I just listened to other people's stories of them going no contact. And I'm not judging people because, again, we're not in anybody's household. And I've been through periods of no contact or low contact or estrangement from my own family members, specifically my parents, my mom. Our relationship has come a long way, but it didn't get to where we are today without a lot of growing pains, without a lot of bumps in the road, without periods of no contact, without periods of seeing her. But that is what I needed in order for our relationship to get to where it is now. And I'll even say, as an example of what boundaries are, my relationship with my mom, it didn't change because she changed. Like, she has changed some, but I had to do a lot of growing on my end. I had to do a lot of maturing on my end. I had to do a lot of letting go of certain things that came with understanding why my parents did a lot of the things that they did. And that just comes with a certain level of understanding. And some people may be like, oh, you're making excuses for them. But it was more important to me to have a relationship with my parents. And when I brought up certain things to them, if they were willing to apologize about it and atone for it, great. If they tried to justify their actions like, oh, I did this because X, Y, and Z. I also grew up in a different culture, right? So Nigerian culture is completely different. I grew up with the culture that my parents have, and that culture was instilled in me. Even though I was socialized here in America because I was born here, I was raised here, my parents, my household was very much a Nigerian household. So a lot of the time it felt like I was walking in two worlds. And I would feel so frustrated sometimes about the experiences that I was having and also weren't having with my parents that I saw other people have and not be able to have. And for the longest time, you don't understand culture. At least I understood very superficial parts of Nigerian culture, but it wasn't until I got older and really understood that my parents parented the way they did because that's how they were parented and that's how their parents' parents were parented. They were socialized in a completely different place, encultured in a completely different place. I can't fault my parents for that. What I can do is grow up, understand it, try to heal from certain things, and then if I have children of my own, not replicate some of the things that I didn't really appreciate about my upbringing. I would never get on the internet. Now, granted, I'm not a billionaire, I'm not a millionaire. My parents aren't like, celebrities and haven't been celebrities for 30, 40 years. So there is no need for me to get on the internet and make any blanket statements about the status of my relationship with my parents. But I do, when I see younger people doing this, it reminds me of the lack of maturity in the sense that their brain has not fully developed, but also they are not able to understand their parents as adults. And there comes a time in your life where your parents shift from being your parents' mom and dad to adults, and you see their flaws. You see them as real humans, and you recognize that some of them may have been just acting from a place of not knowing any better. And you know how some parents will be like, I did the best with what I had. Some of them did not. Some of our parents absolutely did not do the best they could. They did the best they were willing to do. And that speaks volumes. That different is important because a lot of people use the word can and can't willy-nilly. What I have found is that it's more a matter of will and won't. And some people are unwilling to do better. They are unwilling to get uncomfortable. They are unwilling to learn and grow outside of their comfort zone. And so when sometimes when our parents be like, oh, I did the best you could, it's like, no, you did the best you were willing to do at that time. And since we cannot go back in the past, you just have to decide how you move forward, how you heal from it, especially if you want to have a relationship with your parents. And maybe Brooklyn doesn't. And this is why he released this bombshell ass statement. But again, in my personal opinion, it was very spiteful and vindictive, knowing that his parents' brand is one that is very private, but was also built around family. That is vindictive, to shatter their image because they are not behaving and moving in a way you like. They're not doing what you want. And I think what he wants probably is for them to take Nicola under their wing and make her a part of that brand. And they were just not going to go for that for whatever reason. And I think it was probably because of her MAGA ties. That's just my personal opinion. So anyways, let's get into the second part of the statement that kind of had me raising my brows. My parents have been trying endlessly to ruin my relationship since before my wedding, and it hasn't stopped. My mom canceled making Nicola's dress in the 11th hour despite how excited she was to wear her design, forcing her to urgently find a new dress. Weeks before our wedding day, my parents repeatedly pressured and attempted to bribe me into signing away the rights to my name, which would have affected me, my wife, and our future children. If Posh Spice really did that the day before her wedding or just a few days before her wedding, that is absolutely messed up. You are a designer girl. Now, did her brand do very well? Not really, but we know Posh Spice for her fashion. She's a fashionista. She is a diva. I'm sure for Nicola to have her mother-in-law making her dress, that is something she was probably very excited for and proud of. And if Victoria Beckham actually did that, there is no justifying that. My wedding was, oh my goodness, it's been 10 years. I've only looked at my wedding photos like a handful of times, maybe 4 or 5 times. Couldn't tell you where they are. I didn't watch my wedding video. It was so important to me to have a videographer, and still to this day, I've never watched my wedding video because my family members, I felt like they weren't really happy for me, excited for me. And because I'm Nigerian, I had a lot of different ceremonies, and they were like, oh, this is like, you have an American wedding, you have a white wedding. That's what they call, the wedding that, you do the whole, go to the church, you got the white dress on, everything like that. That's what Nigerians call the white wedding. And then you have the Nigerian ceremony. You would have just the typical cultural celebrations. And because I'm both Yoruba and Igbo, I had both of those celebrations. So it was just a weekend of a lot of activity. Oh my God. My wedding was literally like three and a half days long. It was the longest, oh my God, the longest weekend of my life. So I think part of me still has PTSD from how crazy that was. PTSD is extreme. What I will say is that I just don't really have a lot of positive memories from that time. And I remember when I went to get my wedding dress, it was just not a really good day. So admittedly, I do not look back on my wedding period with excitement, with fond memories. Maybe someday that will change. I always said when 10 years comes around, I'm going to do like a different ceremony. But now that 10 years is here, I don't think I'm probably going to do one. I don't know. I just feel like, I don't know. Maybe not. Maybe we'll do a vacation. We're already planning our vacation. So I don't know. We'll see. Maybe I'll do something different for 20 or 25 years. But anyways, all of this to say that your wedding is supposed to be one of the most exciting times of your life. And I will say that family members and your friends too, they really show their ass and who they are around important periods of your life. I will say funerals, weddings, and when babies are being born. That's when you get to see the true character of the people in your life. And I've only experienced it from the perspective of weddings. So I don't know how my other family members would show up in those capacities. But from the capacity of my wedding, my family members did not show up the way that I really would have appreciated. And it was very hurtful to me. And when I talked about it, it was not received very well. And so, yeah, that is still, and that's one of those things, like I said earlier, that is just something that I came to the understanding that nobody in my family was going to care about. And they were not going to give me the apology that was deserving. And none of them had gone through their own wedding. I wasn't a bridezilla by any means. None of my bridesmaids or sisters could come with me to my final wedding dress fitting. So they showed me how they took a video of how to do the bustle on my dress. And then I sent the video to my sisters and my bridesmaids. And the day came of my wedding. It was hot. Oh my God, we got married in freaking DC in September. Baby, it was hot. Okay, it was so hot. So after we took our photos and everything like that, I went to go put the bustle up. I can't do it by myself. So I was like, oh, I sent them the video. So thinking that they watched it, right? Wrong. They didn't watch it. And so that was the one moment where I just finally I was like, are you serious? You guys have not showed up for me in any capacity. Nobody has been excited for me. Everything has generally kind of sucked. Every event has sucked. Everything has been terrible. And all I asked y'all to do was watch a video of my bustle, of me bustling the dress, of the seamstress bustling the dress. And y'all couldn't even do that. Like, what the hell? And then after that moment, it was like, oh, Sasha, you're reacting. Calm down. It's not that big of a deal. So even me at my breaking point, the one breaking point that I had during my wedding, it was, oh, you're overreacting. It's not a big deal. Like my parents, my family members, my siblings could not have made it any clearer to me. They did not give a shit about my wedding. They did not care about me getting married. They did not care. And I was the first person in my family to get married. I'm one of 7, 4 sisters, 2 brothers. So generally it's supposed to be a big event, and it wasn't that. They could not have cared less. I tried to talk to them about it and none of them cared. And it wasn't until one of my other sisters got married and kind of dealt with the same thing that she was like, oh, I'm sorry. So sometimes people, they're only able to empathize as far as their own experiences. And it's really unfortunate because I'm not one of those people. Like, you cry, I cry. I feel like I'm very empathetic. I'm very like attuned to other people's different emotions. And so I've never been like that. But there are a lot of people who they don't care about things until and unless it impacts them, and then they're able to empathize. So anyways, if Victoria really did do that days before the wedding to stress her out like that, that really sucks. And I do empathize with Nicola. Thankfully, she's a billionaire. She's got money. She's got connections, and her dress looked beautiful. So all's well that ends well. As far as Brooklyn saying his mother was trying to destroy his relationship before they even got married, I wonder when he introduced Nicola to his parents, because it seems like it further in the statement, he said that no, Victoria would bring his exes around and even tried to invite some of his exes to the wedding. One of his ex-girlfriends went and even dated his brother. So that's a little crazy. Like, that girl was scamming and weird. Well, let me not say scamming, but that is weird. To go from dating one brother to another, that's very weird. But it seems to be very common in these millionaire families. So maybe I'm tripping. I don't know. Maybe I'm just too common. Maybe I'm just too poor to understand why billionaires and millionaires be dating the same people. But anyway, something I notice about a lot of cultures, and again, this is not normal in Nigerian culture, for you to be just like introducing everybody you're dating to your parents. Like, I have always thought it is so crazy that some people introduce every single person they're dating, not even somebody that's their boyfriend, not somebody who is their boyfriend and girlfriend, but somebody who they've been casually dating. They bring them around their friends, they bring them around their family members. And I'm like, oh, this would never fly in Nigerian cultures. And I know a few other cultures are like that, like Southeast Asian culture, East Asian culture. Like, none of my Indian or Asian friends could ever bring around a casual girlfriend or boyfriend, somebody they've been going on a few dates with, trying to call them their boyfriend or your girlfriend. If you're not talking marriage, get out of here. Don't bring this person to my household. But then again, that is because Nigerian culture, it is one of those cultures where there's no dating. You just marry, period. Like, where's your wife? Where's your husband? Like, it was so crazy to me that growing up, my parents did not allow us to, didn't even talk to us about dating, nothing like that. And then out of nowhere, they'll be like, where's your husband? Where was I supposed to get a husband? You taught me nothing about dating. Like, it is actually a miracle that I had. Well, not a miracle. I think that I'm somebody who picks up on a lot of things, and I do have a certain level of discernment. I do give people the benefit of the doubt a lot. My discernment has grown a lot, but I think in part I got very lucky with Snowbabe because I did not have dating experience. I did not know the red flags that you need to look out for, nothing like that. So I just employed certain common sense tactics, watch how he treated people, watch how he talked to people, got his perspective about life, his goals. And that's how I knew he was a right person for me. So this is why I always say when you're dating, the dating advice that I would always give is to date for character. A lot of people will date nowadays because a lot of the dating advice is actually wild and is low-key sex work. The dating advice a lot of women are being given nowadays. Y'all need to be dating for character. It doesn't matter that man's height. It doesn't matter how much money he is making, his income, what his house looks like, whether he drives a car, whether he has a job. Well, let me take that back. Having a job is important, okay? I know in this economy, people are getting laid off and right. So if he doesn't have a job, if he's looking for a job, he needs to be looking for a job, okay? Like, being employed is a green flag. Okay, so that is absolutely advice those are absolutely things you want to look out for. But yeah, all of those other things though, none of those things matter if he is not a person of good character. And those are really superficial things. And I feel like a lot of people are dating on a very superficial level instead of looking at people's character. I will say, to make a case for bringing people around that are people who you are casually dating. Maybe you haven't gone to the boyfriend or girlfriend stages. When you bring that person around, other people around you, if they have good discernment or they know who you are as a person, so your family, your friends, they will pick up on things that you may necessarily not pick up on. So that is good to bring them around in that capacity. However, a lot of people be continuing to date people their family and friends do not care for, have brought up their concerns, and the person just dates them anyway. And I think that may have been the case with Brooklyn and Nicola and the Beckhams. There is something about that girl his parents clearly don't like. They don't. And here's the thing, though. For as much as he is saying behind the scenes they dislike this girl, they are with her in public. They went to the wedding. And we're going to get to the wedding a little bit later. They showed up to the wedding. They're with her in public. They haven't slandered her. They haven't done anything negative to her. So it's like, this statement almost makes him look crazy because he's coming out and saying, oh, my parents did this. My parents did that. They put this in the press. And it's like, where? Like, he looks crazy. I just feel like he did not think this out. I really wonder what made him put this statement out, because it does not make him look good. It does not make him, in my personal opinion, I've seen the conversation has been very divided. A lot of people have been comparing this to Prince Harry and Meghan Markle. And I think, it makes sense. Prince Harry is from the UK, the Duchess of Sussex. She is from America, and the family didn't really the royal family clearly didn't like this girl. And Nicola is an American girl. Brooklyn is from the UK, another high profile family. However, that's probably where the comparisons end. The reason why the royal family did not like Meghan Markle was because she was black. She is a person of color. Baby girl is like literally 25. Is she even 25, 50? Is she biracial? I don't know. She's black. She's half black though, or 25% black. She has some level of color to her, and that was solely the reason they did not like this girl. They terrorized her. They made her life a living hell and ran them from the country, okay? And they were purposefully putting negative stories about her in the press and making her look like a dumbass on purpose and not teaching her certain etiquette. And they just purposefully, everything they did was on purpose to make her look bad. That does not appear to be the case with Nicola. Now, like I said, were the Beckhams warm and welcoming? Did they have their arms open to her? We don't know that, but we have not seen them plant negative stories in the press. At least it's not obviously coming from the Beckhams. That's what I will say. It's not obviously coming from the Beckhams. When bad press was coming out about Meghan Markle, it was clearly coming from the royal family or somebody in the royal court or someone in the palace, because there were a lot of stories that you could only have gained that insider knowledge and information from if you were there or you heard it from somebody in the family. That doesn't seem to be what is happening with the Beckhams. So when it came to Nicola, maybe they're just thinking, oh, he's brought a couple of girlfriends around. We didn't really like them, or we did like them, whatever the case may be. They're not going to last very long. They just happen to get married. And it's like, oh crap, now she's a part of the family. Okay. As far as them signing away his rights or his name, give that boy his name. He is grown. Yeah, I don't really have any thoughts one way or the other about that. Give him his name. At this point, that is the best thing that they can give him, because it doesn't really seem he appreciates the life. And I don't think children should have to be appreciative of the life their parents give them. The kids did not ask to be here, so it is your job as a parent. If you are going to bring children into this world, you need to provide. It seems like aside from them providing, they did try to give him certain opportunities, and he didn't make the most of that. Okay, whatever, give him his name. That is the only thing he can cash in on and profit off of at this point. Give that boy his name and keep him moving. I guess I have a problem with every single part of the statement. So here we are. The narrative that my wife controls me is completely backwards. I've been controlled by my parents for most of my life. I grew up with overwhelming anxiety for the first time in my life. Since I stepped away from my family, that anxiety has disappeared. I wake up every morning grateful for the life I chose and have found peace and relief. My wife and I do not want a life shaped by image, press, or manipulation. All we want is peace, privacy, and happiness for us and our future family. Cap. That's bull. If you wanted a life of peace and privacy, why are you out here making this statement? People who want a life of peace and privacy don't come out and make public statements like this and throw their celebrity parents under the bus. I mean, come on, Brooklyn, come on. What is the reason? That's what I'm wondering. Like, he keeps on mentioning our future family. Is Nicola pregnant? Like, I don't know. And then again, if you wanted a life of peace and privacy, she's still an actress. Is she pursuing that career? This isn't to say that just because you have a certain profile or career, you should not expect a life of privacy. That's not what I'm saying at all. And I think we see that very clearly, how people can be very abusive and feel entitled towards influencers, content creators, celebrities, models, actors, actresses, reality stars, people in the public eye. No, they don't sign up for abuse and harassment just because of the jobs that they have in the public eye. I totally understand that. I just don't feel like I want a public life. I just don't feel I want a private life tracks. And then again, you're 26 years old. You admitted you grew up with anxiety. So as good parents, they recognize that you have anxiety. They recognize that you're dealing with some mental health struggles. Should they go as far as to control your life? No, but, they are probably thinking of ways to insulate you from certain things so you are not experiencing, so nothing is triggering that anxiety. They control that aspect of your life. And now you're going from one person or two people, your parents, controlling that aspect and trying to help you manage your anxiety, to another person, your wife, who is in part may or may not be responsible for now managing your own anxiety. I can easily see his parents feeling like he is being controlled. They could very well be wrong. I can see them feeling that way though. I don't think Brooklyn is being entirely honest. I really think a lot of this statement comes down to immaturity. That's why I don't want to punch down on him too hard, because this is something that if Nigerian culture is very private, it's very insular, and I knew what I was going through with my own family members at that point in my life, in my 20s, when you're in that figuring it out stage. And so I wouldn't have said anything like that. I would not have put a statement like this out to the public, even though I can feel his feelings through this statement, because even though I'm picking it apart from the perspective of being somebody who is 38 years old. I'm in my late 30s. This boy barely cracked mid 20s. I can honestly empathize with a 26-year-old writing this statement. I can put 26-year-old me in his shoes, and I probably would have written the same thing. I just would not have put it out into the atmosphere because, well, not the aspects of control, but the aspect of, you ruined my wedding, you're not happy for me, you make me feel X, Y, and Z. A lot of the things he wrote, while I can't entirely relate to it all, there is a lot in this statement I could relate to, 26-year-old Sasha could relate to. I would never put it out in a statement though. But that's just because I come from a culture that is very private, and you don't want to do anything that's perceived as shaming your family or bringing shame or, being messy or bringing scrutiny to your family. So that is still something I very much believe to this day. I very surface level shared certain things, but I won't share other things because A, I've gotten over those things, and I don't think it's very necessary, but also B, I'm very cognizant and respectful of my parents and my family members, and I would not come on this internet and still say certain things about them. Moving on, my family values public promotion and endorsements above all else. Brand Beckham comes first. Family love is decided by how much you post on social media or how quickly you drop everything to show up and pose for a family photo op, even if it's at the expense of our professional obligations. We've gone out of our way for years to show up and support at every fashion show, every party, and every press activity to show our perfect family. But the one time my wife asked for my mom's support to save displaced dogs during the LA fires, my mom refused. Okay. Again, your family, you were able to live a certain life of privilege based off of your family's brand, based off of your family's riches and brand image. Now that you're not able to benefit from it, or it's negative towards you, or your wife isn't able to benefit from it, all of a sudden it's a problem, and all they care about is image. You see, this is like people, It's the immaturity for me. That is an immature thing to say. You can't have it both ways. You can't love the nepotism and the camera when it's working for you. And that's honestly a part of the reason why your wife became your wife. Because let's be honest, I think Brooklyn Beckham is very handsome. He may have other talents and things like that. Would she have been checking for him outside of the family name? I guess we'll never know. But his family name, he benefits from it. His family brand, he benefits from it. His parents' image, he benefits from it. All of these fashion shows and parties and things like that, he benefits from it. Now, all of a sudden, you can't benefit from it, or your parents aren't extending that to your wife. It's a problem. Also, during the LA fires, were people flying into LA? I'm very confused. Like, I should actually text my sister and ask her. My understanding of the LA fires was it was people on the ground who were coming together to help community members. Some people were donating money and resources. If you couldn't be on the ground, some people were sending resources. Some people donated money. I donated money. My understanding is that Beckham still live in the UK. Did he expect for them to fly over and take up resources during a natural disaster? I'm very confused what his expectation was of her. To shelter dogs? People are dying and you're pressed about dogs? This is, listen. I will never get behind. I'm sorry. Maybe it's because I didn't grow up with pets. I don't have one. I just cannot understand the people who put the lives of animals above the lives of human beings. I will never understand that. I will never relate to it, and I don't respect it, if I'm being completely 110% honest. There were also, as is my understanding though, there were some agencies that were helping to shelter displaced puppies and cats and animals from the LA fire. So what was Brooklyn's expectation of his mother? If you want to shelter the dogs, bring them into your own house. Like, what are we talking about? Maybe Victoria's like me and was like, Brooklyn, people are dying. I'm going to be giving my resources to humans. I like the support what was the support he's asking for? I'm very confused about this support. Who helped him write this statement? This entire statement, I'm sure he sat down and said, yeah, this will do it. When he was done writing this statement, he said, yeah, I got to pepper them with hot fire. No one spits more hot fire than me. Dylan. Like, I'm sure he sat down there and really thought he was give them. He was like really gonna put it on us. Everybody was gonna be shocked, awed, appalled, automatically Team Brooklyn when he put out this statement. All this is giving to me is immature 26-year-old who are mad that his parents don't like his wife, and now he's going scorched earth to get their attention and force their hand for him to get the response and the attention that he wants. This entire statement was so freaking immature and reads like someone who needs to step away from social media and step into a therapist's office. Because you're talking about they did this for the social media optics, this, that, and the third. You're putting this statement out on social media, like Brooklyn. This is the pot calling the kettle black. Oh, what is going on? Oh, I hate this for the Beckhams. I honestly do. This is crazy. This is a crazy statement. Now, this is where everybody is talking about the wedding. This is what everybody is talking about, the wedding. And I do have empathy because my wedding experience was not what I wanted it to be. So I do have empathy for this. If it's true, but again, if it is true, Victoria is wrong for pulling out of making her dress. And I also need to see footage of this dance. Because if Victoria was up there really throwing it back, like, I need to see what was embarrassing about this. Has Mark Anthony come out and said anything? Like, what's going on? The night before our wedding, members of my family told me that Nicola was not blood and not family. Is she not? She's not blood, and she's not legally a part of your family yet. So, I mean, these are hurtful things to say. I'm not saying that they should have said them. If true, they're not wrong. It's true, they're not wrong, but depending on the context of how it was said, I'll wait for that. Without context, I don't know. Moving on. Since the moment I started standing up for myself with my family, I've received endless attacks from my parents, both privately and publicly, that were sent to the press on their orders. Even my brothers were sent to attack me on social media before they ultimately blocked me out of nowhere this last summer. That's terrible. Unfortunately, the siblings are always going to pick sides. You don't want them to, but that's what's going to happen. When I went through what I was going through with my parents, I was talking to some of my siblings, but I wasn't talking to others of my siblings. And the siblings that I wasn't talking to were the ones who still lived at my parents' house, but they were also really young because there's a big age gap between me and my siblings. So my youngest sibling, we are 15 years apart. Then the next gap is 11 years. And then the gap after that is 9 years. So it was a significant age gap. And they have their own limited understanding of what happened and their perspective on it, and their opinion was largely shaped by what my parents were saying about me when I wasn't around. And so I really don't hold them to task about that. It is what it is, but it's sad. It's sad. I think all of them are older now, so they should be able to have, all of the Beckham children are older now. I think the youngest, she's in her teens, but they're older now that they should all be able to have a relationship with each other. But unfortunately, they are going to take sides, and you're going to take the side of who is better for you. The parents are still probably providing for them. They get to go to all of these cool activities and events. If the Beckhams really are the way Brooklyn is saying they are, they may have taken away opportunities or resources from the younger siblings if they took Brooklyn's side. So, and he's also the oldest. So the oldest sees things that the youngest siblings don't see. He may absolutely be correct in that regard. And he knows his family better than any of us do. The only people who knew what happened in that household or the night of the wedding were the people who were there. And so it sucks that the siblings may have felt they were forced to take sides and ultimately sided with their parents. But that is understandable that they would side with their parents. There's no reason or incentive for them to side with Nicola and Brooklyn. So I think that's a non-factor. I think also bringing up his siblings was a little petty. But at the same time, he said he didn't want to reunite or he didn't want to reconcile with anybody in his family. I assume that includes the siblings. And with the siblings liking certain social media posts, I guess the feeling is mutual. Now, here's where Brooklyn really seems upset. Although the whole statement seems upset, and maybe he's not upset about it so much as this is what social media has taken and run with because it is so funny and hilarious visualizing how bad this could have been. But this is the part where he is the most aghast. My mom hijacked my first dance with my wife, which had been planned weeks in advance to a romantic song. In front of our 500 wedding guests, Mark Anthony called me to the stage, wherein the schedule was planned to be my romantic dance with my wife, but instead my mom was waiting to dance with me instead. He did not have somebody I've caught so many typos. He did not have anybody edit this. Anyways, she danced very inappropriately on me in front of everyone. I've never felt more uncomfortable or humiliated in my entire life. We wanted to renew our vows so we could create new memories of our wedding day that bring us joy and happiness, not anxiety and embarrassment. Now listen, to that I'll say, y'all have already heard what I've said about my wedding. I've considered renewing my vows. My 10-year wedding anniversary will be this year. I've thought about it, probably not going to do it. But if his wedding day was so horrible and Nicola feels the same way, by all means, go out and renew your vows. Your wedding is one of the most important days and events in your life, and it's the union of two families, but it is also the start to your family. And I really feel like I didn't get the wedding experience that I wanted or I would have liked. So if I were to renew my vows, it would just be me and Snow Bay. I don't think it would be anybody there. And so I can respect that. If he felt, though, that his wedding day was ruined by his mom dancing on him, this is Posh Spice. Baby girl can't dance. So, so it was probably cheeky. It was probably funny. But if he does have anxiety, maybe he didn't want that level of attention. Like Snow Bay is somebody who for as extroverted as I am, and I don't care about being the center of attention, I don't care about having eyes on me, he is the exact opposite. So if on our wedding day, he was also really drunk. So maybe he would have responded differently. But if his mom had gotten up and threw that ass back on him in a cheeky, jokey way, he probably would not have had a negative response to it. But we're not Brooklyn. Brooklyn, he suffers from anxiety. He may have wanted to just get up there and do the dance that they practiced and sit his booty down. I'm not sure. We weren't there. However, I feel like if it was that bad, somebody would have leaked the footage by now. So I need to see the footage. I need to see the footage, Brooklyn, and I need to see it now. I need to see it now. Now, this part had me raising an eyebrow. My wife has been consistently disrespected by my family, no matter how hard we try to come together as one. My mom has repeatedly invited women from my past into our lives in ways that were clearly intended to make us both uncomfortable. That's weird. I wonder what the context of this is. Is it his ex-girlfriend that also dated his brother? What does he mean by that? I'll take his word for it. I'll need more. As far as like disrespecting her, that's not okay. All she's done is love your son. You may not like the girl, her parents may be MAGA, but unless she's doing anything remarkably offensive or being disrespectful to you, I don't understand the disrespect. I don't. But also, what does he view as disrespect? Because in Nigerian culture, everything in Nigerian culture is disrespectful, right? Like I don't know. I don't know what he means by disrespect. Like, we tolerate certain behaviors from people who we do like that we wouldn't tolerate from other people who we dislike. So if Victoria and David and his siblings are really disrespectful to Nicola and she was just trying to be there, part of the family, and they were just being rude to her for no damn reason, I don't co-sign that, and that's not okay. But I would need to see more of it. He goes on to say, despite this, we still traveled to London for my dad's birthday and were rejected for a week as we waited in our hotel room trying to plan quality time with him. He refused all of our attempts unless it was at his big birthday party with 100 guests and cameras at every corner. When he finally agreed to see me, it was under the condition Nicola wasn't invited. It was a slap in the face. Later, when my family traveled to LA, they refused to see me at all. Nobody wins when the family feuds. This doesn't benefit the Beckhams. It doesn't benefit Nicola, but least of all, Brooklyn. Because God forbid this rift becomes so big that their relationship ends up splitting. Let's say Nicola can't benefit off the Beckham name like she thought, and he ends up being a weight to her. She's 31 years old. This boy is 5 years younger than her. He's very immature, da-da-da-da-da. Because like I've said before, from what I'm seeing in this statement, I see somebody who's immature. I also see somebody who's hurt. If he's not going to therapy, all of this could consume him. Nicola may not be prepared to deal with all of this. She's an actress. She's trying to get her career off the ground. She's trying to keep her good image going. Whatever. Now, let's say they end up getting divorced, and now they've divorced. He's lost his family. He benefits from this least of all. Now, as far as David not wanting to see them together, you don't got to go everywhere your spouse goes. I don't think people understand that. Like, I do think that you and your spouse are a unit. However, I don't go everywhere with Snowbay. If he wants a boys' night out, he goes to his boys' night out. If he wants to do certain things and I don't feel like going, he will do certain things and I don't need to go. He's taken vacations by himself or with his friends and it's just them. I've taken vacations by myself, or it's just me with my sisters or with my friends. And when I go visit my parents, sometimes he'll come with me, sometimes he won't. His parents live a little bit further away, so when we do like family visits, we'll go together. But if he wants to go out for dinner with just his dad or his mom or his cousins, I don't need to go. You don't need to go everywhere with your partner. I understand them getting on a plane together to go and visit his family, but she can't stay at the hotel? Like, I don't know. Like, maybe it's just, maybe I'm seeing this from the perspective of age, but also being from a different culture. But that's how I saw my parents growing up. Like, my parents, they didn't need to be up under each other. They didn't need to go everywhere the other person goes. I do think it's a little weird when a lot of couples feel like you either get both of us or you get none of us. I think that's weird. I'm sorry. I think it's weird. You don't need to be everywhere where your partner is. Let them have one-on-one time. If they're like, baby girl, come, we don't care, then by all means go. But if they're like, hey, we're just going to chill, it's just going to be family. Okay. Like, Brooklyn doth protest too much. If I'm being totally honest, like I said, this statement reads of the immature ramblings of a 26-year-old who is very unsure of himself, who doesn't know where he really fits in and is hurt and needs to go to therapy. I do think from that statement, he does need some time and distance away from his family. Absolutely. He needs to figure it out on his own. He needs to figure out his relationship with his wife. And yeah, it seems like they seem intent on creating a future together. They seem intent on having children. Hopefully before that happens, he does go to therapy. He tries to mend things with his family members, and at the very least for himself, because he does seem very hurt. A lot of these things also seem like, what was the reason? That's what I'm wondering. At the end of the day, like, assuming all of it is true, what is the reason? Your wedding happened how many ever years ago? Is she pregnant? Is she putting out a movie soon? What happened? Like, why are we hearing about this now? And so after this statement came out and like blew up the internet, everybody was weighing in on their opinions. I was like, I want to wait to see what his parents say, because I could have easily dropped this video. I've had these thoughts since seeing his statement, but I wanted to wait until either Victoria or David came out and said something. And David finally released a statement, or addressed it without directly addressing it. And I really liked his response. In an appearance on CNBC's Squawk Box on January 20th, David Beckham said social media can be a fertile ground for people to make mistakes. He goes on to say, I have always spoken about social media and the power of social media for the good and for the bad, the famed soccer player said. The bad we've talked about with what kids can access these days, it can be dangerous. What I have found personally, especially with my kids as well, use it for the right reasons. What I have found personally, especially with my kids as well, use it for the right reasons. I've been able to use my platform and my following for UNICEF, and it has been the biggest tool to make people aware of what's going on around the world for children. I've tried to do the same with my children to educate them. They make mistakes, but children are allowed to make mistakes. This is how they learn. This is what I try to teach my kids. You sometimes have to let them make those mistakes as well. I thought this was a very classy statement. It addresses that he is fully aware of what his son has said. But just like I always say, social media is a tool. And like any tool, you can either use it to build or destroy. And he's 50 years old. He came up in a time where none of this social media bullshit was happening. Like, whatever, you got something to say, you can say it to me. We're not going to do the social media games. He does seem they're very media savvy, him and Victoria Beckham. They're very media savvy and intentional with their brand. So what he puts out on social media is very calculated. What he also says to the media is very calculated. They are very well media trained, and that extends to social media. But I think with social media, it can also be age. There are very messy adults on the internet, but you're very likely not going to find people exposing their family tea and drama at his age. You know, Gen Xers, older millennials, boomers, you're not very likely going to find them exposing all their family tea on the internet the way we see younger millennials more prone to do, even some millennials as well. Let me not just say younger millennials. I feel like we started the trend of airing tea out on social media in very messy ways. So yeah, you're not likely going to see that from older generational groups the way you would with millennials, Gen Xers, and now Gen Alpha. He is very well aware of what his son said, the statement his son put out. He is very well aware that people are looking for a response, looking for a messy response, and they're not going to get it. And unfortunately, his parents not popping off in the same way makes what Brooklyn said, makes him look even more crazy. It makes him look more immature, because it's like his dad in a low-key kind of way. And granted, even though Brooklyn is an adult, he's still David's child. And so David referring to him repeatedly as a kid, I tell my kids, he's very much still sunning him and putting him in a child's place.
Post-production note, the way David responded also takes air out of Brooklyn's claims that they are so in control of their image, because wouldn't this have been the perfect opportunity for David to fire back at everything Brooklyn said? But instead, he took the high road and basically didn't even address it.
And for Brooklyn, that was probably very irritating. If I was in Brooklyn's shoes, I would be like, why is this man trying to son me? My kid. I'm a grown man. I'm about to be a father. Well, maybe he wants to be a father someday. I don't know. I'm just speculating. Maybe Nicola is pregnant, because again, what would cause him to put this out here? But anyways, I'm going to wrap this video up because it's getting long. When it comes to family estrangements, nobody wins when the family feuds. I think some of this could have been reading the statement. It could have been circumvented with a level of maturity on his behalf, with respect and acknowledgement of the brand his family is very clearly trying to build and how Nicola does not fit into this, and maybe some boundaries. Because it seems like what the Beckhams have done is put up boundaries that he feels Nicola being his wife and him being their son can trump. And they're like, no, it's actually not going to trump that. And sometimes, again, we relax our boundaries around certain people depending on certain circumstances. So boundaries are not firm. They can be fluid. You can tighten them. You can relax them as much as you want to. For whatever reason, though, they have decided this course of action against Brooklyn, maybe not even against him, but maybe that is their own boundary for him, for their behavior, what their support as far as sheltering the dogs for the LA fire, wanting one-on-one family time without his wife there. That is something that they're being firm about, and he doesn't appreciate that, and he feels like it is disrespectful to his wife. Like I said, though, nobody wins when the family feuds. I really hope he goes to therapy. And this is an example of what, in my personal opinion, this is what happens when you have not developed the tools necessary to work towards your own healing. It doesn't seem like David, anyways, will hold it against him, because David seems like a very compassionate and emotionally mature parent. And I've never seen Victoria. I get probably the same vibe from Victoria. I don't think his parents will hold it against him, but it's not, he comes out looking bad on the other side. And I really think that with time, he will probably realize that that statement was not the best course of action. It was very reactive based on his own hurt and his emotions, and not proactive if his goal was to heal. I think sometimes people do things that are conducive to their own healing in order to force other people's hand, because they feel like they have been slighted. And so they want the other person to come to the table and apologize, and will seek out that apology or rest in their victimhood, rest in the fact or the feeling that they are the one who were wronged or the one who was wronged. Not really taking a step back, though, to reevaluate whether this was a miscommunication, how they may have contributed to the situation, and how maybe they aren't a victim in the situation. Whatever the case may be, however the situation ends up sorting itself out, it's really sad that, it comes to this with the family. Looking at that statement, I see someone who is clearly very hurt, clearly very frustrated, and I really empathize with how he is feeling, especially surrounding his wedding, because I had a really crappy wedding situation, or I really didn't appreciate my wedding experience. And if I could go back in time and do it over again, I would have just eloped and called it a day. If I had known I was going to have the wedding experience that I did have, I would not have put that much time, energy, and money into a wedding. But since I can't take back the time, it is what it is. I move forward. Maybe someday I'll feel comfortable looking at my wedding video, looking at my wedding photos. But 10 years later, I'm still kind of in the same place, but I'm in a different place in the sense that you just have to move on. You can't change the past. And was I hurt about it for a few years? Was I bitter about it for a few years? Absolutely. And it seems like that is the place Brooklyn is in. But is it worth imploding his relationship with his family and his parents all over a little maybe twerk Victoria did? I don't know. I don't know. I don't think so, but your miles may vary. And if they do, drop down in the comments, because I definitely want to hear your thoughts. Have you gone through a period of estrangement with your family members, your parents? How did it work out? Like, what did you do to get to a place where y'all were okay again? Or are you still not okay? Like, I definitely want to know, because estrangement is something new. And I think the way we are handling it, we are going about no contact, is so extreme that it leaves very little room for growth and reconciliation. And I think it has something to do with the fact that we are becoming a society where we view people and relationships as very transactional, as very disposable. And if somebody doesn't move the way you want them to, or show up the way you want them to, with no consideration or care for what they may be going through or what is going on in their personal life, a lot of people are very me first, egocentric, self-centered, viewing the people around them, even their family members and their friends, as NPCs. And when somebody doesn't move the way they want or do what they want to do, it's automatically, I'm going to cut off this person. You're removed from my life. I'm going low contact. I'm going no contact, when no contact is an actually pretty extreme thing to do, and should be the last resort if your goal is to maintain relationships with people and have good, productive reciprocal and good relationships with people, not one-way relationships. And I fear we are getting to, if we have not already arrived at this place as a society, where relationships are so transactional, and as a result, we view people and the relationships we have with people as disposal if they are not serving our needs, our wants, and our expectations at all times. Drop down in the comments. Let me know your thoughts. Don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel. And until next time, peace out.